For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
Greg, I know we're getting ready for our big road trip to Gen Con here, but I said specifically I did not want to stop unless it was Dunk. What are we in this place here? It says Starbucks on it. What is this about?
We're running out of gas.
Oh, wait. Is that John? I recognize him from that video podcast. Is that painting? Is that Menoth John? Is that you?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Excellent. What are you doing here at Starbucks in the middle of nowhere?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm actually at work right now.
Really? Are you a Starbucks barista?
I am not a barista.
Okay.
I am a process engineer.
Ooh.
I actually design roasteries.
Design roasteries. See, I didn't even know that was a thing.
So if you go to Seattle,
right.
There is a very special Starbucks there. To date, there is only one Starbucks where we actually roast the beans in the actual store. And I was the process engineer for that job and did all the startup on it. And now we are opening one in New York City and Shanghai. And
Shanghai. Do you get to go to Shanghai?
I have not had the chance yet, but I am imagining that I will.
Awesome.
Oh.
You'll love it. It's like sci-fi central.
Really excited about it. We're opening, there will be like 5 others, but I don't even know where most of them are going to be. So I couldn't even talk about them if I wanted to. But they're really exciting. We roast the beans right there. It's very showy. It looks nothing like how a real coffee factory looks, but boy, oh boy, is it flashy.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
What a cool job. So that's great. Well, as listeners may know.
I mean, we're here now. We might as well go inside.
Yeah, well, it's very
Thanks for
exciting.
meeting me, though.
Yeah, this is great. So why don't we have a seat here and enjoy some of this fine, high-end roasted coffee here.
Oh, yes.
And listeners may know Menoth John here. John is, of course, the president for life of War Machine and Hordes. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Now, John, is it just War Machine or is it War Machine and Hordes? I get a little confused.
It is
on
War
this.
Machine and Hordes.
Okay, right.
You know, when you had Norbert on here just
Yes.
recently,
Yes.
he is the prime minister of War Machine and Hordes,
He
and I'm
is.
very
Right.
happy.
Well, that makes sense.
Right.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is an actual like governmental org chart
Yes.
for War Machine and Hordes. They're at the top.
Mm-hmm.
The man that we report into is a gentleman by the name of Bubba Dalton, and he is from Canada. He is the official king of the North.
Okay, that's fair. Right.
Which is relevant for
It
the
is
rest
relevant.
of our conversation.
It is.
Right. Indeed.
and then Norbert and I report in as the Prime Minister of War Machine and Hordes and President for Life of War Machine and Hordes. President for Life, it was a funny election. I had one person running against me, and he dropped out. So I claimed the title
Right.
for life at that point. And, I'm a benevolent dictator. And the way that we have decided that the rule will take place is that my patrons over at patreon.com/MenothJohn are, because as you know, with government, if you are willing to pay, you get access.
Right. You get influence. Right. That's how
Right,
it works.
exactly.
Right.
So
Right.
we have, with any of our patrons, they get cabinet spots in the presidency for life of Menoth John. So we have, basically we have the Minister of Great Times.
Excellent.
Who is in charge of making sure that everyone has a great time when they're playing War Machine and Hordes.
I like this.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. I think this is a model that should be replicated throughout the world.
Well, we'd like to think that it was original, but the idea of giving a little bit more for the patron is absolutely a D6G concept. And
we don't have cabinet positions, though. We just give them free content. We don't even, you're actually promoting them and giving them influence over the entire game system, which is pretty impressive.
It is because they had a big say in Mark III,
right?
And I couldn't show favorites, and that's how the tough rule happened. So
right. Well, speaking of Kings of the North,
yes.
That gets me thinking. When you say King of the North, you really think about winter. And, of course, if winter is coming, which it always is, let's be honest, then all you can think about is Game of Thrones. And I'm really working on the segue here. And so because of
this
that,
is the most belabored segue we've had in a long time.
It's a stretch, I admit.
Who's on the show, Craig? who's on the show.
Well, my question is, which one of us is on pain medication?
Right.
'Cause it's
Yes.
certainly acting like Russ.
I will be soon.
This is beer number 3.
I feel like I've already popped my pill.
So Craig, we've been wanting to talk now. Season 6 of Game of Thrones just ended.
I wouldn't let you do it until the season was over, and
Yes.
then when the season was over, we had guests on that either didn't watch Game of Thrones
Right.
or didn't want to spoil it. So, but now everything has come together.
Everything's come together, and of course,
and
John
Menoth
here.
John is
Yes.
as big a fan as we are,
Yes.
and is eager to talk about it as we are.
So-
so you are about to hear the entire season 6 laid out for you,
Yes.
and what we think and what our reaction was. So if we have to warn you at this point that there are spoilers, then you haven't been paying attention.
There are going to be spoilers. If you do not want to have any of Season 6 spoiled, stop now. Come
So,
back after you finish watching it.
I need to put my fandom in context.
Okay.
My show usually starts at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday nights Central Time,
Yes.
which is there's a half an hour pre-ramble, so the show starts actually at 7 p.m. on Sunday nights at twitch.tv/Menoth John. Of
course.
And we actually slide our timetable for our show based on Game of Thrones. We will not ever put a live show against Game of Thrones. I hear that's bad for ratings.
I hear it
Yes,
too.
yes.
Right. You should have Game. Now, you do Game of Thrones pre-show on your show, right? I mean, you prepping
We
it
don't
up.
necessarily talk about the show,
Yeah.
because we don't want to be spoilerific. Because
true,
there's a lot of people that are, for one reason or another, may
behind,
be
yeah.
slightly delayed in watching their Game of Thrones action.
right.
So we don't talk a lot about it, other than we are here early because Khaleesi is a thing, and we're not willing to go up against her.
Rats,
No.
Yeah, don't mess with Mother Dragons for sure.
No.
Especially this season.
Yeah, she's not messing around anymore. So let's get started. So I have to say the big event that kicked the season off, and they didn't even mess around. They just started off with a bang.
No, literally.
Was, of course, the resurrection is the right word?
No, that happened at the second episode.
Was it second? I thought it was right in the first one.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
First episode was the wiping out
yes.
of the entire legitimate Martell family.
Oh, yes. No, that was great. So, yeah, go ahead. Start there, Craig.
The entire legitimate Martell family got wiped out.
All right, moving on. Episode 2.
I mean, it was really, really kind of crazy
Yeah.
in my head. Because Doran Martell was kind of getting set up as this
Yeah.
like noble guy. I found several parts of this season aggravating, and this was one of them. Because Doran Martell was on the trajectory of being one of the good guys, and he got wiped out. Sort of, you're gonna think, oh, well, could the people who killed him have to be bad guys? But then by the end of the season, you find out, oh no, they're going to be fighting on the side of the good guys. And you're like,
Right.
but they killed another good guy. So that was a little confusing to me.
But
My
they killed-
morality is I don't deal that well with that fine shades of gray.
They killed Dr. Bashir.
Yes,
And
they
I
did.
wasn't okay with that.
No. See, it reverberated up and down the time-space continuum.
It really did.
All right.
It did. But I think, I don't know, that actually for me just was like par for the course at that point. In the end, when he was sort of like,
Yeah.
when Spider had gotten him back. I mean, I just like, that just makes sense.
That's true. Okay.
So what'd you guys...
But then, of course, the big thing is in the second. They teased it a lot. It was at the end of the second episode.
Yeah, you know it was coming. You knew it was coming.
Well,
But-
you did. I mean, you knew it was coming.
You know nothing about death.
Right.
Oh.
I thought that was I thought they did that well. I liked how he came back, and I've also liked throughout the season that he feels, less there.
Yeah.
And they talk about that. I mean, they pretty much blatantly talk about it near the end about how the people that keep coming back to life, there's less and less of them every time, right?
Right.
And I thought they did a good job with that with him too. Like, you're kind of like, he doesn't seem to have the same energy he used to have. So I like the whole Jon Snow being back thing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
It was a little Mary Sue, but I'm not sure how the storyline could have progressed with him out of it. So
I mean, and you learn at the end of the season how central he's going to be,
Right.
which has been a huge fan theory for years and years and years and years and years. But
Yeah.
they kept that until the last episode of this season before they really fully revealed how important Jon Snow is to the TV audience that hadn't read the books.
Right.
and I'm one of those people that unfortunately has to admit to not having read the books. I've read. Thank you. I know. I'm a terrible human being. I've read a lot of other things. I just haven't read Game of Thrones yet.
Yeah, for those who haven't read it, here's where the people who've read the books are. So the people who read the books, basically the last book ended with Jon Snow being killed.
Yes.
So that's pretty much as we knew. So this season was sort of there were a couple of things that the time sequence was a little bit off, and they were we knew a little bit more in the books, but not much. And pretty much this whole season was the first season that was beyond the books. So all of us were
cleared up a few things that had been in book 5 this season, but most of this season
was new.
Was brand new.
So, Arya and everything else. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is interesting. Oh my God, that's interesting. And so it was kind of neat for me because for me, it was the first season watching the show where I didn't know what was going to happen. Like in prior season, it was like, ooh, wait till Nicole gets to see the red wedding. Ooh, wait till this happens. Ooh, wait till that, And now it's like, oh man, this is a totally new, I don't know what's going to happen, So it changed how the show feels for me and how I watch it.
Yeah.
This was the first season that I had to flee social media completely until I had seen the episode.
Yes,
because this was, I think, the hardest season from a spoiler standpoint related to social media that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way too. I felt like there were quite a few episodes where they really came back and said new thing. Like it felt like every episode was like a big deal. There were very few episodes like, oh, filler, whatever. It was every episode had a big deal.
Well, not only that, every episode killed at least one main character. It was insane.
Yeah.
And basically what you were looking at was 5 seasons of laying the groundwork and literally never having anything resolve. And then all of a sudden, every episode was resolving something and cutting somebody's character thread short.
Well, don't forget too, there's only one season left, right?
No, actually, what I learned was there's another full-size season and then a half season.
Okay.
So is what they're planning.
So that's what, like 9 episodes?
That's like 6 episodes left, I think.
Yeah. So that's not
okay.
Yeah, so that's why they got to start wrapping things up. And things are wrapping up, or at least you can start to see what might be the end. Or I'm sure there'll be some plot twists, of course, but you're starting to sort of see what happens.
And a bunch of people are still going to die.
Oh, yes.
All right, so my money's on Khaleesi, officially. If we know there's only going to be like 6 or 8 episodes left, I'm all in on Khaleesi.
Khaleesi dying or Khaleesi making it?
I'm pushing in the stack.
Okay, wait. Well, let's
that she dies or that she makes it to the end.
No, that she makes it to the end. That she's going to win this Game of Thrones.
Well, let's talk about our crazy theories at the end here because I really want to. Yeah, because there's a couple. Well, anyway, let's stop before that. So the other big thing, of course, was the next big thing was Jon Snow coming back. Then what was the next big one after that? Are we at Hodor yet?
Might as well.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily have to do it in order. I would say. So, let's look at the deaths.
Yes.
Want to do that? Let's look at the major deaths. So who died? Well, Doran Martell, we already talked about.
Yep.
And then Roose Bolton, who's been kind of like the badass bad guy for a while.
Oh, thank God.
Been pulling the strings.
Yeah.
Now, what I didn't like was how many people died in this episode by being stabbed in the stomach by someone standing right in front of them.
Yes.
As if, okay, we can't see the knife because we're off screen. But seriously, you didn't notice that your son, the crazy bastard son, had like a knife on him?
Yeah,
that's true. I don't know. But anyway.
Not for nothing, but why are you backing that jackalope?
Why am I backing him?
If I'm Roose Bolton, why am I picking him for my son?
Oh, right.
Well, he wasn't. He's got more issues than National Geographic.
Well, he finally but that was the thing, right? He finally had an actual heir. And so he was ready to kind of push him out, and that's when his son.
So he was like the stopgap until he could get a son on the Frey girl.
So that was man. That was
So there's Roose Bolton killed by Ramsay, of course, who probably has more blood on his hands individually than anybody else on the show.
Probably.
Then Balon Greyjoy, who dies relatively early in the books. He dies in like book 3, I think.
Yep.
Exactly the same way, except in the books, it's never revealed if it really was his brother.
I wasn't sure. You don't know for sure.
In the books, they like half the people are convinced it was the drowned god who did it, and the other half are like, wait a minute, though, his brother was like right over the horizon. Euron Crow's Eye, Hodor.
Hodor Hodor was quite a cool. That was awesome.
It was an awesome concept, but I wish he didn't have to have died for us to have it revealed.
That didn't bother me. That whole scene was so powerful and so well done. And like Nicole and I were watching it, and I don't know, it was just where we were mentally and how we watched it, but it just really, I loved that whole scene. Like that whole scene was just awesome.
And this is where Facebook jumped the shark so hard that everybody, folks, Facebook, listen, this is for you. Open letter. Love you. You're not that clever. Okay? You're just not. So don't think you are. Don't think that you're going to come up with a way of cleverly disguising something by going, hold the door, and just like only vague posting that. It doesn't work that way. You're a jerk.
Right.
I can't tell you. I think I blocked 5 people because of that episode.
Yeah.
Really?
And I'm okay with that.
Well, that's the problem. Unfortunately, and what happened to work out that night was Nicole and I happened to be watching it live, like a half an hour delay.
God bless you.
So we, and that was when that happened. That was when I decided that we would try to watch every Game of Thrones episodes. You know, because there have been seasons where there's obviously big things once in a while, but you don't need to see every single episode the night it comes out. This season, it felt like holy. But that was such a powerful moment, and I kept thinking as we were watching, like, oh, I'm so glad this wasn't spoiled for us. Oh, I really am glad I didn't have any idea this was coming. I really didn't. I'm glad I didn't know that Hodor meant hold the door. That whole thing just worked on so many levels for me. The other part about that was really interesting was the whole affecting history from today, right? So he was able to sort of somehow travel back in time through people's minds or through magic, or whatever happened there, and affect the past to affect the future. And now you're starting to see other modes. You're hinting, there's other things hinting that can be done again.
The power of the three-eyed raven.
Yeah, right. So you're seeing how that actually works. And it's like, wow, that's just like mind blown. It's like, wow. I was like, so that was, I just loved the whole thing. I thought it was great.
Okay. I did not, I loved the concept. But I wish that Hodor could. It would have been even cooler if Hodor, in my head, and totally different story, and it's not my story, so I'm totally fine with the way it is. But in my head, it would have been cooler if Hodor had rediscovered his faculties through that connection, and then survived to fight on as like as an intelligent guy. I think
it was a more powerful scene because he sacrificed himself, though.
So I'm gonna say Craig is like the published author, and so I'm I'm going to tip my hat. Actually, that's really cool. I hadn't thought of that. As far as the Hodor getting his faculties back through the three-eyed raven.
That would have been
because that would show how that particular character could influence. You look at so many different genres of fantasy and things like that, and the ability to affect the future through the past.
Right.
And if you think about Merlin and how his character is, it's a little similar to that. That would have been really neat because for Hodor to suddenly become an active acting character, not a one-line big guy that carries things, would have been amazing.
Well, it would have been awesome because he's huge.
Yeah, but the message there, right, was that he went back in time and affected the past, so Hodor would be the way he was for the future. Like, I don't know. It's like I don't know.
And I don't disagree with you.
I agree. Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not taking anything away from Hodor's sacrifice or that was a more powerful way to go about it. I think it's kind of an insight into the kind of stories I like telling versus the kind of stories that George R.R. Martin likes to tell, because he would never have had that kind of redemptive, out of the blue, like, haha, now I'm a good guy that's actually I can fight and talk again.
The other thing to think about is
that sort of reversal never happens in Westeros.
Well, what's interesting about this though is
but I disagree, Russ, with you that anybody did this on purpose. Like, this to me was a total accident.
No, it was, but he went back and said, hold the door to him in the past, which got into his head for the rest of his life, so that this moment he knew what to do.
Right.
Like that's what I mean. Like, he didn't know that's how it was going to manifest, but that's what it did. But what I thought's interesting is most people in Westeros die for no reason. Mm-hmm. Like, Hodor is one of the few people who died for a reason, if that makes sense. Right. Like, usually it's senseless death all the time. It doesn't matter. You get caught out here, you just killed.
Right.
You know. Yeah.
No, I get it, and I like I said, I'm fine with the way it happened. It just as it was happening, I had this flash of, oh my God, this is going to be awesome. Now he's like this great, he's going to be this big giant warrior. So when he died, I was like, oh, that's so Westeros. Okay, so moving on to through the list of dying people. Now, what about Blackfish?
I thought this might be the most meaningless death in the entire season.
And sad and pathetic and off. I mean, they admittedly, he's a secondary or second or maybe even tertiary character, but they've spent a goodly amount of screen time building him up to be like the great champion of River Run. And, and he was this great warrior who would never back down and he would never let anybody tell him what to do. And he dies off screen to a bunch of men-at-arms.
Yeah, he basically dies to a bunch of mooks.
Yeah. Now, unless he's not dead.
Right.
See, that's the thing.
Oh.
In the books, he dives off of River Run into the river and maybe dead, maybe not.
I don't think he's dead.
So that's the only redemption that you could look for here is that he's not dead. But they said, I don't know, they backed him into a corner in the keep and killed him. So I don't know how that could possibly be confusing, but I don't know, maybe it is. So there's that. Well, okay, here's biggest disappointment for me this whole season, and I think this might just be because I expected more, and I want the very few times it didn't live up to how bloody I wanted it to be. Walder Frey. Was it good enough the way Walder Frey died? Hello.
So the way that Arya Stark took him out.
Yeah, he
awesome.
eats. So he, first of all, that's not how it's going to happen in the book, because in the books, somebody else has that happen to them. Okay. Somebody else gets fed.
I think you need to get comfortable.
Sons.
I think you need to get comfortable right now that there's not going to be any more books. Okay,
right.
Just to acknowledge the fact
we're not
that
going to waste. Okay,
the lore is going to end
wasting
here.
a lot of screen time. We're not going to waste any more of our podcast time talking about that theory. Okay, so maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. Right. I happen to think you're wrong. Let's just move on.
All right.
Okay, but in the books, Walder, in the book, somebody else, Fat Lord, what's his name, Manderley, actually theoretically captures a bunch of Freys, bakes them into a pie, and feeds the pie to a bunch of the Frey and Bolton men.
Right.
And so that's already happened. So I seriously doubt that in the books, if that happens, that Arya is going to do the same thing. But ignoring that fact, do you think that him eating the pie with his two sons in it, realizing he's done that, then getting his throat cut, is good enough considering what he did at the Red Wedding? Was that satisfying enough?
I didn't
know, but I don't think that scene was about him.
That's exactly what I was going to say, John. That scene was awesome because of Arya, where it told you where Arya Stark was.
It reset Arya on her path.
Yes.
And that was the point of that scene.
Yep.
I don't think that I can see where you're coming from, Craig, that from your perspective as an avid fan of the books, you are looking at that from his standpoint, whether or not he necessarily got his comeuppance from what is arguably probably the most pivotal scene in the first part of the story. Mm-hmm. But what it does for Arya and resets her on the list.
Yeah.
And her list of people, what's got to die.
Yeah.
And I think it really resets her character, which I think is going to be more important for the show moving forward.
But I think she could, no matter what she did to him, it was going to do that. Right? And I believe that there's almost a mathematical equation in storytelling where you've got X equals all of the bad things the bad guy did, Y equals the final result, and that has to equal
you need to equalize
Z, which is Zika virus. No. Z, which is the audience being satisfied that those two things balanced out, right? That's how X has to equal. Yeah. Anyway. And
it's cathartic in nature. It has to
exactly.
be
and to me,
get out of it.
He died far too easily and it's possible that that's okay because it happened 3 years ago in real life. So maybe it's the distance is I just hold on to things longer. I don't know, but to me, it was neat, but it wasn't enough for me.
Fair enough.
I don't think we need to see him torture. I don't know. I like that.
The way that she killed what's his name from the Kingsguard. where she stabbed him in each eye and then stabbed him in the throat in the chest like 20 times and then slit his throat.
Not for nothing. I'm
Yeah.
okay with a little less torture going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
I got my
But
fill
I
of
think-
torture porn in this show.
But I
That's
also think like it doesn't have to be about how many times you get stabbed, right? Like I thought that was a really great scene where he loves his kids. So the fact that she basically fed him to him
yes.
and then let him live long enough to understand that's what happened, and then
Yeah.
let him live long enough to understand who did it to him,
Right.
and understand that a Stark just took them all out
That's true.
and then killed him. That was cooler justice than, the amount of pain. I think I liked it, but I'm with John on this. I think that scene was more about Arya. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying about the weight of the justice of how evil he was should be paid out. But I liked how it did for Arya a lot.
Now-
not
now-
enough, but there's not enough evil in the universe for Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah.
So the way he got taken out, while poetic, was not nearly enough to
I
deal.
don't know. I like that scene.
I liked it too because
I liked it too.
let's not jump the gun here.
All
Because
right.
puppies are cute.
That's true. I'm a big dog.
And plus, it sent some good memes going for a while.
Yes, true.
Yes, it did.
Well, speaking of comeuppance, you've got Alistair Thorne and all the Night's Watch guys who got around together and killed Jon Snow.
Yep.
Jackalopes.
So they were all hanged.
That
I'm
seemed
good with
fair.
that.
Yeah, that seemed fair.
Yeah, that
Very
seemed good because they did something bad. And then I don't know what exactly. Well, because we're like steering towards the end of the season, believe it or not, the single, even more bloody than the Red Wedding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was let's call it the Green Trial.
The Cersei vengeance moment.
I
Man,
mean,
the
she
true
didn't.
separation of church and
She
state.
blew up an entire hill
That was awesome.
inside King's Landing
I love that
While
whole
she
scene.
sipped wine.
while she drank and watched it.
And even I love the drama at the end where I don't know about you guys, when I was watching that, there was no doubt in my mind, even though they played it out like there was a chance it might not happen. You totally knew. You totally knew
see,
that was going to blow.
I thought at least Marjorie Tyrell was going to get it.
No, I was like, she's going to get them all. She's going to get every single one of them.
That was okay. That was Mace Tyrell,
Yeah.
which I
Everybody.
I can't remember what that was. Loras Tyrell,
Yeah.
Marjorie Tyrell, Kevin, her own uncle
Yep.
Lannister,
Yep.
Lancel Lannister, who
Yep.
actually I believe was the guy who tried to stop it after he got gutted by the little children.
Yep.
I mean, and the High Sparrow.
And the Sparrows, which was the big one. But then it had the unintended consequences of killing her own son.
Who jumped out a window
jumped out, who
after he
killed himself.
realized that his mother had just killed his wife.
His mother had killed his wife, all the people, and he'd chosen the wrong side, right?
I mean, fell swoop,
I know, right?
insane.
And then the best part is she sits on the throne.
Best memes on the internet.
Yes.
With showing her son taking the dive out of the window, going, "This is Jackass, and this is the King's Landing."
That was so that I loved. Cersei's the character you love to hate, and that whole
that was
situation
just
was
like
so great.
I mean, that was just
pretty wonderful.
and it set the tone because you could leave this season going, what does Cersei have?
Right.
I mean, she's got enemies all around her now, no big deal. But now what they've shown you is through through that scene and then other things that people have been saying that those tunnels go through the entire city.
Right.
So this could very well end with the entire city of King's Landing
Blowing up.
going up like the Sept of Baelor
Well, the
went
best
up in
part
that
was how they
episode.
set that up, right? Because there were some really great twists in this thing. I know we're talking about who died, but that'll take the whole show. So I just want to
No. I think this could be a structure for the.
I just want to get this in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
The setup with the Sparrow and how they played that whole political thing was really interesting to watch, right? So
Exactly.
so Jamie comes back. They think they've got him set up. They think they've got him locked down, and then then the king is in his pocket, right? So that whole thing fails. And then Cersei thinks she's got her whole trial locked down with a trial by combat, and then they get the king to outlaw trial by combat, and you're like, she's screwed, right? There's nothing left for her, and it's all over, and you're just thinking, well, it doesn't really matter anyway. We'll write Cersei out, and then the armies, and now there's this whole complicated thing. All those guys they've taken out. Cersei's in total control, but she's really not, right? She's got really her claim on the throne is tenuous at best. Right,
Super tenuous.
Everybody around her hates her guts,
like non-existent.
right? So
There
there's,
has
just
never been a better time for Khaleesi the Dothraki,
Right.
the Unsullied, and 3 dragons to come rolling
To
up
show
across the narrow sea.
But now the problem you got is she's got a great claim, but also Jon Snow's got the claim. So what's going to happen there? And is there going to be, how's that all going to play out? So I'm looking at now is I don't see a major resistance from King's Landing because that place is just a disaster.
Right.
The big problem is going to be what's going to happen when the army from the north runs into the army from dragons.
And you, my friend, are acting like a Southron lord who doesn't have his eyes fixed firmly in the north.
Right.
Because the real bad guys are not human.
Well, that's right. So what'll end up happening is those 2 guys will ally and go fight the guys from the north.
And
that's why it doesn't matter what
That's
Cersei
right.
does.
That's right. It doesn't matter.
That is why it is a song of ice and fire.
Ice and fire.
That's right. Exactly.
It is.
So moving on.
Yes.
Grandmeister Pycelle, which gets stabbed by orphans, which makes perfect sense because he's been a pedophile through the entire episode.
Just as an aside real quick,
But
I love that we're now able to summarize the entire season just by going through the deaths.
Yes, exactly. You could totally do that.
It's a great way to do this.
Okay. Now we haven't lost any of the actual Stark children have died. None of them
Right.
have
It's been a
died
good year for
until
Starks.
this season.
It's been a pretty good year for the Starks, though. If you think
Until
about
now.
it. Well, okay, let's go into it because I think losing 1 or 2 is pretty good for them. I mean, on average.
it has slowed their rate.
Right. I think
That's true.
I think they're directionally. I mean, they got 1 back. You figure one comes back.
And for how long?
Their net is they're up 1 for a while.
Well, the problem I have with this is okay. So Rickon, the youngest Stark child, has been gone for basically the entire series.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He disappears at the end of season 1, and he's off there somewhere we don't know. And then if I have one complaint about this season, it's how quickly they would introduce old characters and then get rid of them. Here's Osha, the wildling who helped the Stark boys, blah, blah, slit throat. Okay, never mind.
Well, it's kind of like they want to just tie the loose ends up. It's like,
exactly, but it's like brutally, and it doesn't, I didn't really, it was tying loose ends that I didn't really feel.
Yeah, I don't think we need to tie that lesson.
These
I'm
minor threads don't really need to be tied up.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Sometimes you got to kill a fly with a bazooka.
That's okay. Well, there you go. So Rickon Stark. Now, Rickon Stark's death. Mm-hmm. Did anybody think he was going to make it to Jon Snow?
Oh God, no.
No.
I see. I'm a sucker.
movies.
Have you not been watching the first 5 seasons?
I know.
Nobody nice makes it.
Right.
I know, but that was brutal running across the battlefield and freaking Roose Bolton's shooting them. I mean, Ramsay Bolton's shooting at the arrows, and the way they edited it made it look like his last arrow he was going to get off missed, right?
That battle was awesome.
That split second and then stunk right through the shoulder blades. Then the arrow storm stunk right through the head, just in case you thought maybe he had survived the one that went through his heart. Ugh, God.
But nothing. But he's a Stark, right? No one's ever yelled serpentine at him.
That's a good point too.
Well, I think his death, though, I think that really set that scene up.
Well, that's what made the rest of that battle make sense.
So you had to kind of.
Jon didn't care anymore.
Right.
That whole battle was about Jon, like rekindling the fire that he had lost when he died and was resurrected.
That's right. And then of course you tied up the big play from Littlefinger there, of course, and Sansa.
Right. Yeah,
was a big deal.
When Gandalf arrived, that was the best.
That's right. It was a very Gandalf moment. But that whole scene, I mean, that was just a fantastic battle.
I had no idea what was going to happen there.
I didn't either.
No.
Again, it's one of those things where the Cersei taking out the trial scene,
Sep,
the Hodor, this one, these are all things that were much more powerful if you went into it having no idea. If you knew what was going to happen,
none of us had any idea.
No,
right?
that's what I mean. Right, none of us did. But if it had gotten spoiled for you, it really would have been taken the moment. So I hope we're not those people. Please watch the show.
Well, we warned. There were a lot of warnings.
Statute of limitations is over. This is
probably
weeks
Yep.
and weeks.
But
so that's that one. That was awesome.
That episode. Okay, Battle of the Bastards, best single episode of the entire show ever.
It's up there.
You had the Battle of the Bastards, right?
Yeah.
And wasn't that the same episode where Khaleesi comes in and the dragons and the fleet is attacking? And my favorite thing ever, she's got the 3 leaders of the slave cities.
Yep.
And she's like, okay, one of you is going to I'm going to kill one of you and send the other 2 back. So you tell me who I'm going to kill. And those two guys turn on the one guy. And so she has those two guys killed.
Right.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
It's really close between the Battle of the Bastards episode and the last episode, which I've renamed Boom Shakalaka because of the explosion of the Sept.
Yes.
But it's really close because seeing Khaleesi leading that
Army.
The
that
fleet.
army,
Yeah.
that fleet of ships that the Ironborn have brought to them. It's amazing.
I think
They're both wonderful episodes. I don't know how you choose between the two.
I'm with you guys though. The two of the best episodes of the entire 6 seasons are in this season. They really, and it's because it's a culmination. I mean, obviously you couldn't have had that much powerful a moment in the first season because you're not as invested. But they definitely at this point they had several moments where they just had some great payoffs from all the watching we've been doing. So it was really, really well done.
Agreed.
Yep. Okay, so Rickon Stark. All right. The Waif. Okay, this I think, and I don't know. I feel like I'm like the guy who's complaining through this whole thing.
You are, but it's okay.
But I was not like I wanted Arya to be more of a badass assassin in the streets of where was she? What's the name of the city?
It's not Marine.
The money town there. Yeah, I forget.
Oh, we're failing.
But here's
My
the thing.
computer is frozen.
But here's the thing.
But
yes,
she's getting sneaked up on.
Yeah,
and,
she should. I mean, I know the other woman has been doing this longer, but I do feel like my brother had this point with me. He's like, if you're running from assassins and some old lady starts walking towards you on the street, you probably want to suspect, and they can change their face.
Yeah.
You probably want. So it's kind of, and I didn't like how many times. I mean, how many people in the show have been stabbed in the stomach 4 times and lived
and died?
Like nobody's lived. So so for Arya to like shake that off, and she's treated by like an actress who's not even a physician. Like how did that even work out? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like how it ended and she got away with it, with everything there, and I like how she kind of took her out in the end by cutting the candle and going blind there. That was pretty cool.
Right.
That scene was very powerful. But it would have just been better if she saw the old woman coming and just immediately ran for the edge of the bridge and jumped off, and didn't face her directly there and then set up. There was no need to stab Arya and then just make her heal. Like, I didn't really understand. It just didn't.
It didn't.
My disbelief got suspended.
To me, it cheapened what. I mean, she should be almost like a superhero at this point.
Yeah.
To me. Like her ability to fight without like with her eyes closed,
right. And she is, I think. And they were trying to say, well, this other assassin's her equal because she's an assassin too,
right?
But, and I get that part, but the stabbing of her, I just couldn't get past. How did that heal? Like, it really bothered me.
I'll be very honest with you. I think the Arya Stark story, up until the point where she slit the guy's throat, has been really poor. I kind of lost interest in Arya once she parted ways with the Hound. Mm-hmm. And the whole, a girl is not a this and that and the other thing was great and fine. And the fact that the other girl that was the assassin was essentially a T-1000.
Right.
Down to the way she ran.
Right.
And
yeah, that's true.
And that was fine. But I think that we didn't get Arya back until she went and slit the guy's throat.
Yeah.
And I think that all these tribulations that we've had are probably not worth the build up to get the character back that we had when she was crossing names off a list.
Right.
And it's okay for Game of Thrones to have not everything be awesome when most of it is.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair. But you're right. I think the Arya story was one of the weaker side plots, I guess. But I like how it ended. I like that they did manage to develop her as a bad arse, and now she's back on her path. And speaking of the Hound, we didn't really talk about that. I love this guy. That was sort of an interesting whole situation with this whole little side, finding happiness and then having it taken from him, and then.
Well, it's also interesting. Again, not to bring the books into it, but I'm going to bring the books into it.
All right, fine.
Well, there's an island where one of the main rivers comes out and kind of goes around this island at the coast, and it's called the Silent Island because all the guys on there have taken a vow of silence except for the head brother who kind of runs the place. And Arya, on her way out of Westeros in the first place, runs into this island. I think, is it her? Yeah, I think it's her. And you kind of see No, she doesn't see it. It's a actually totally different character that's not even in the TV show at all. But you actually see somebody who is most likely the Hound off in the distance plowing a field with a horse. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh, wow, yeah. So he made it, and he's now on this island, and he's kind of found peace. And the TV show version of that is he bumps into these brothers. Actually, it's not really. They're not really in the, they're not.
Small religious group.
Yeah, it's like just a small religious group with the most poorly used actor of the entire series. You've got Ian McShane, and that's what you do with him? He's in one episode? That is why when someone questioned him on the street, he started dropping F-bombs about Game of Thrones fans because he was bitter. Because he got hired to be on Game of Thrones, and he must have thought, well, I'm Ian McShane. This is going to go very well for me. And he was in a single episode. But anyway, I'm not bitter at all.
He was a really good character in that episode.
He was that one episode. He was actually I found that he was not really good because he used a fake accent and his own voice is really, really cool. But anyway. But yeah, so that was yeah. So and of course they wiped out everybody there, right?
Yes.
And then what did that do? Again, different from the books. Now the Hound is with the good guy side of the Brotherhood with banners, which is now apparently split to good guys and bad guys. Like bad guys just run around doing whatever they want, and the good guys who are still kind of following the edicts of the Lightning Lord and Thoros of Mir, the Red Priest, those two guys who basically started the Brotherhood without banners. So now, if you squint a little bit, the Hound is out there with his own army. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Or at least he's fighting with an army, a ragtag rebel army, if you will.
I want a showdown between the Hound and his undead brother.
Bravos, by the way.
That would be excellent. Yes.
Oh, see, that's going to happen. That's got to happen.
That'll happen.
Absolutely, that's got to happen.
Hound's got to win that one, or else just to heck with you, George R. R. Martin.
So the last big death we have to talk about.
More death.
Ramsay Bolton.
The pinnacle of death.
Was that satisfying?
It was for me.
John thought it was a little much.
I loved it.
Did you?
I did.
No, you didn't think it was good enough. That's right. You wanted more?
I don't know how you can torture him enough. But I've had enough torture, and I'm ready to move on.
I liked that whole. So it actually was in layers, right? It was like an onion. Yeah. So you had him.
An ogre.
You had him defeated on the battlefield, which is already humiliation because you could tell the guy just can't stand to be defeated.
Yeah.
Then there's the scene in the courtyard where you're kind of feeling like Jon Snow or somebody just going to kill him right there. Like I was literally yelling at the screen when they didn't kill him. Like, no, you got to kill them. Just stab him in the stomach. I'm at the point. I'm emotionally invested at the point.
4 times ought to do it.
Yeah, like it's not enough. Don't let him be Arya. So what I'm thinking is like I'm not watching the show. Like I'm so invested in some of these scenes. It's not that I'm sitting there going, okay, how bad does he need to die for me to feel satisfied? It's like, do not. I'm like watching like a horror movie. Don't open the closet. Don't let him live. Just freaking kill him right now. I'm yelling at the screen, and I'm like, they are not just going to put him in jail. They're not just going to. Oh crap! They just put him in jail. Do something. Would someone just? And then when Sansa walks in and just does that to him, I'm like, oh thank God they killed him.
They won't turn on me.
Yeah, right.
Really, they're very hungry. They haven't been fed in 7 days.
Down boy.
They'll never turn on me.
Right.
So I had a moment just like that a couple of seasons ago when Tyrion Lannister was in prison and was facing execution.
Yeah.
And I turned to my girlfriend and I said, "You've read the books. I am not going forward with this series if Tyrion Lannister dies."
Right.
He is the only person in this entire show I care about.
Right.
If he dies, I'm all out. You look at me right now. I know this is a spoiler. Does he live or does he die? She goes, he lives. I say, thank God, let's continue.
Yeah, they can't. There's a couple characters. Tyrion Lannister is one of them. They cannot kill Tyrion Lannister.
Guy.
I mean, they can kill him at the very end. They can kill him in the last episode if they want to or something. But you really got to keep Tyrion alive because he's just so damn funny. You can't not.
Well, I mean, how do you feel about where Tyrion Lannister was this season?
Oh, my God, he's in the best position
I liked
ever.
him, yeah.
He was great, yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
Oh, my God, he's so good. He is so much better. Peter Dinklage is so much better in his role as Tyrion Lannister than he is in literally everything else he's ever touched.
Yeah, he's just awesome, and his character now is in just a great spot. That it's really wonderful, and that whole I loved what happened with the Khaleesi and how that whole thing developed and that whole situation. So I loved all of that stuff, and in the end I think a couple of there was so much closure about some major plot points this season, and yet I thought they really did a great job net because in the end there was a lot of great closures, fantastic moments, amazing memorable things that just tied right that finished so cleanly, and yet there is still so much more to go. Which I think really positions them well for season 7 or 7.5 or whatever to be that final, the next 6 to 9 episodes being the final episodes.
Right. Now, this is something books versus TV show again.
Why are you obsessed with this? The books are done.
The books are not done, and I'm not talking about future books. I'm talking books that have already been written. Why are you going to be such a pain in the ass? I wish I had taken my meds like a half hour ago. Then this would be way more entertaining to me.
Not for nothing, but I want to call out the fact that Craig swore before I did.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Good point. Fair enough.
Ass. I meant donkey. What do you think? What are you thinking?
Nobody don't like buffet. Nobody don't like buffet.
Yeah. But in the books, he goes into some detail about the fact that in the TV show they've nodded towards it. So it's interesting. I want to have John's take on whether or not he's picked this up. Tyrion is absolutely obsessed with dragons in the book. Has that come across to you in the TV show?
No.
See, I didn't think so.
I don't think it has because while because if he was obsessed with dragons, I would have seen different behaviors when he went down to see the dragons for kind of the first time.
Well, there was a couple of scenes.
I would say, knowing that he's obsessed with dragons,
I saw it.
I thought, I saw it in his acting. I just don't think that they've given it to you.
It's very subtle. But I saw it there.
In the books, he's like constantly reading books about dragons or remember. It's actually mostly in his memory. But living in the Red Keep, he would go down and he would just stare at the dragon skull. Oh, those dragon skulls were actually in the
They have every scene where the dragons come. If you watch, whenever there's a dragon on screen with Tyrion, they always have a shot of him just staring open mouthed at the dragon, like always. Oh. And when the dragon first flies in and picks Khaleesi up out of the arena in that one episode when then he flies her to safety, Tyrion again is like, oh my god, it's a dragon. And I could see how it would read, to the casual observer that it's just a person being mesmerized by a giant dragon, but they always show Tyrion doing that, and I think that is a nod to that passion from the books. But it's not overt at all. I can see how you wouldn't see it, John.
Right. Okay. So ready for this? Ready for this?
Right.
Ready?
Yeah,
okay. Here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Are we sitting down?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Targaryen coat of arms, right? 3-headed dragon. Mm-hmm. And you get this over and over and over again. The dragon has to have 3 heads, meaning there needs to be 3 people connected to the Targaryen dynasty who return to Westeros and defend Westeros.
I'm going to poop in your Cheerios by saying it's Tyrion, Dany, and Jon Snow.
That's not pooping in my Cheerios. That's just what I was going to put out there.
Yeah.
Because he is now the hand of the queen.
Yeah.
Right.
And in my opinion, the most amazing revelation this season has been the truth of the R plus L equals J theory, meaning the Rhaegar Targaryen plus Lyanna Stark equals Jon Snow theory, meaning that Jon Snow never was the bastard of Eddard Stark.
Right.
That it was actually and the only thing that talk about poop in my Cheerios, the only thing that throws a little kink in that theory is that Rhaegar was already married to the girl from Dorne.
He's still a bastard.
Had 2
he's just
children.
A different bastard.
What?
He's still a bastard. He's just a different bastard. He's not.
Right.
Precisely. But now, exactly. That's the little kink in the whole theory. But what that means is that he is a joining of the Targaryen and the Stark bloodlines, which means that it goes right in with their Targaryens intermarrying with their families.
Right.
In their family, which makes perfect sense because that means he's actually got a better claim to the throne of Westeros than she does.
Except he's a bastard.
Except that he's a bastard.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the kink in the whole thing.
So
now the next problem is the prophecy of the Magi who told her that she would never have another child until that entire litany of terrible things happened. I think all of those things are going to happen in some poetic way, alternative way. So I can't wait to see how that prophecy plays out, because that keeps getting, she's like haunted by that prophecy, and she keeps bringing it up at least once every season, where she's like, I can't have a child until the mountains fly like leaves and all that stuff. So that's going to be cool, I think.
So John, did you, because Craig, you mentioned that was a big reveal. I because I've read the books, I thought that was sort of not overtly telegraphed, but you kind of knew, right? John, did you suspect that too, or is that a big reveal for you this season when they kind of showed very blatantly at the end that Jon Snow really was a not the child of Eddard Stark?
It was a truly big reveal for people who hadn't read the books.
Okay.
I think that I up until that point I had thought that that Jon Snow truly had Eddard Stark's blood running through him, and it's actually a pretty key thing towards the unification of the North that took place at the end of this season, with him not truly being Stark blood even at all. I think,
he is though.
But wait a second. So
on his mother's side.
That was
Eddard Stark's sister in the bed dying after childbirth.
How the devil am I going to keep all this?
See,
crap?
that's my problem. That's my problem with the scene, and that's what I wanted to ask John before Russ just took it all away from me. Like, there was nothing in that scene to actually tell. Well, he called her by name, so if you remembered what her name, and they actually repeated her name a couple times in the episode, but not in the context of that scene.
Yeah.
So if you were able to put that together, you might have known that was his sister and that was John, because Promise Me Ned is that's something that keeps haunting him through the whole show, even though he's dead. But what they don't, I didn't think there was anything in that scene that connected it to Rhaegar Targaryen, other than the fact that it was the liegemen of the Targaryens that were guarding the tower in the first place, but that was 3 or 4 episodes earlier.
Yeah, my girlfriend Belinda has read all the books and stuff like that, and we always watched Game of Thrones together, and she clearly got it, and I clearly didn't. And I still don't know that I 100% get it, other than I know that Jon Snow has Targaryen blood, and that's going to, without question, figure into where things are going to net out with between him and Dany.
Right.
So I don't know. It made my brain hurt.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah, it would. What you should go online and find the R plus L equals J. It's like a 10-minute graphic that this guy did, and it's awesome because it uses all the books and it ties it all together. And he has a bunch of these theories, and he makes like a little animated graphic out of all of them, and some of them I think are true and some of them I hope are not true, but this one was one that was really amazing to me, that this was set up from the very, very beginning of the very first book, and that he really stayed true to that plot line through the entire, to the TV show.
Hey, so was Hodor.
Who knows if it's going to be in the book that may or may not ever come out.
So was Hodor, though, right from the beginning. So
that's true. That's very true.
So there you have it. I think we're getting the evil eye here from the Starbucks dude. He's telling us to move on.
Well, John works there. Can you tell him? Give us an extra minute or two. I mean, geez.
Can we get a little extra time? Or you got to close? How is that my problem?
All right.
Well,
John,
that did a little bit more time, but not much more.
Well, John, thank you so much for.
I can't think of anything we missed. So.
I think we got the major plot points here. So write in, let us know.
That's what I mean. I think we covered it all.
So John, thank you.
Starting
so much
with all the
us.
deaths, really kind of.
I think the deaths was a great way to follow the plot. In fact, that should be our standard modus operandi here. We just go through the deaths, and that just takes you through the season.
That's right. And that'll tell you almost the whole story.
Yeah, I think so.
Suddenly, a relatively positive podcast became focused around death.
Sometimes you got to look into the dark to find the light, John. That's
oh snap.
Anyway,
you follow the path that's laid out for you.
That's right. So thank you so much, John, for joining us here at Starbucks and telling me about teaching us how the coffee's made. That's always important to know.
That's true.
So we'll see you on the main show here in about a week or so.
Woohoo!
All right, great. Well, take care, John. We'll see you soon.
Take care, guys.
Be cool. Bye, John.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.